seriously popular.
I'm Kelly Laco, Executive Editor of Politics for the Daily Mail, and you're listening to Welcome to MAGAland, inside Trump's second 100 days.
I'm Germania Poleo, Chief U.S. Reporter for the Daily Mail, and it's Inauguration Day, also now known as Liberation Day. That is, according to President Donald Trump.
Today, we will be covering the inauguration and, of course, all of the presidential policies that President Trump has planned to put in place as early as this week.
And what a day, Kelly. We have so much to cover. For example, the current crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border, the two-gender mandate, the newly baptized Gulf of America, and so much more. We'll be right back with all of this in just 1 minute.
Welcome to MAGAland.
Today is Inauguration Day, and so much has already been declared by President Trump. Trump just wrapped up his inaugural address, which lasted about 30 minutes, and in it, he really ran through all of his upcoming priorities, executive orders, plans to enact starting on day one. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the major themes in his speech and how they really contrasted from his last time around in 2017 when he had more of an American carnage focus. We saw him projecting strength, projecting optimism, and really painting a picture for Americans about what they can expect over the next 4 years, even starting today with several executive orders. First off, his Golden Age of America. That was sort of his overarching speech theme. It was very positive, very American first focused.
It's interesting, Kelly, because he had another speech that was a little bit more like what we're used to, and we'll talk about that one later. But the inauguration speech really was tailored to all Americans, as we had predicted in our previous episode. I thought it was interesting. It almost had like sort of a religious undertone. Speaking of the Golden Age of America, he said that he felt he was saved by God during his assassination attempt to make America great again. Liberation Day, he continues talking about this theme of this ultra progressive culture of cancellation that has left so many people behind. I was surprised at how calm he sounded and how he really was offering himself as an alternative to those who might not have supported him in the past, but who have suffered over the last 4 years. We know that the American public is absolutely over what they perceive as this woke culture promoted by Democrats. President Trump said he will change the official policy for the U.S. government so that there are only two genders that are recognized, male and female. I really think, to go back to the campaign, the transgender issue and the role of the federal government in this and what it would mean for underage kids receiving these type of treatments, that was a really soft spot for the American public. And I think Trump's direction on it also earned him a lot of votes of people who might have seen themselves as liberals, but they started feeling a little weird. I think that really scared a lot of people. And so that's another strong topic for Trump. However, of course, we're already seeing online the backlash about this, with people saying that this erases transgender people, non-binary people, all the spectrum of gender that we have been talking about over the last year. So this is for sure a topic that's not going to end here.
That came up several times, basically making sure that Americans know there are two genders. This is how his administration is going to look at the transgender issue, also transgenders in the military issue.
Kelly, let's switch gears a little bit and look at what we saw at the inauguration today. We kind of had discussed this, and it was a Daily Mail scoop, that the tech oligarchy, as Biden calls them, had better seats than Trump's cabinet at the inauguration. So, of course, the usual suspects, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. And I thought it was also interesting, Kelly, Rupert Murdoch was at the church. What a coalition.
We saw the tech titans sitting right behind Trump, clear view of everything that was going on in the Capitol Rotunda today. They were even able to bring their wives and fiancés with them, which is in contrast to the elected lawmakers who were there. They weren't able to bring their wives, which was causing quite a stir behind the scenes. He wants them in his inner circle. He's not afraid to show them off to the world. I thought also their proximity to his own children and grandchildren was quite interesting. We saw Barron Trump, towering above the crowd, interacting with some of the titans. There's also been some talk that Barron might be the next in line to the Trump political dynasty. He
Oh,
was the most engaged throughout. He was right behind his father. We might be able to see a little more of Barron in, a more mature and more of a political role down the line.
I want to go back a little bit to the moment the Trumps and the Bidens met at the White House and what that tells us about their interaction. God, I cannot imagine that awkwardness, though. I guess these politicians should be used to it. But I thought it was very nice considering that Trump didn't do the same thing for Biden. Biden and Jill received them at the White House. Apparently, Joe Biden said, "Welcome home" to him. But also, Kelly, right as they were meeting at the White House, we hear that Biden has pardoned several of his family members. Like, this is as they were together.
The timing was certainly shocking. It happened minutes before Trump was being sworn in. Former President Biden pardoned his own brother Jim, his sister Ashley, a slew of other family members who have been embroiled in what the Republicans call the Biden family crime gang. There's been swift backlash to those pardons. There's also been backlash to a slew of other pardons that Biden put out just before his own family members. Those included Dr. Fauci, Liz Cheney, other members of the January 6th committee. They were preemptive pardons, so they go back all the way to 2014. So that means that any potential crime that Dr. Fauci may have committed for about 10 years now would just be swept under the rug. It's interesting that Biden made this his final act in office. He's making a stand. He's standing up for Fauci.
Trump himself reacted. I don't know how, because a message came out as all of this pageantry was going on with Trump calling the pardons disgraceful. So I think we'll continue hearing about this because Trump is certainly not happy about them. Let's talk about the snub queens of the inauguration. Barack Obama and Mike Pence were there alone at this historic celebration.
It's certainly a departure from the norm. Michelle leaving Obama to his own devices during this event really left him sort of in his own capacity. I think Kamala Harris probably wishes she could have skipped this event. She looked pretty pained throughout, especially when Trump was sworn in. During those few moments, her face was very plainly clear that she was unhappy. It sort of was her ultimate humiliation after losing the election by a landslide, having to certify his election on Capitol Hill, and then today having to witness him being sworn in when she wishes that would be her.
It's time to talk about fashion, Kelly. Very important because the choices made tell us a lot. We already talked about how Trump wants to go above the Republican Party and invite anyone who has felt left out. And I think his look talks to this. He was wearing a tie that was actually red and blue, but it looked more purple or maroon. I think that's an obvious message, no?
Definitely a message he was sending with his tie. He wants to bring in Republicans and Democrats, as he's already done in his cabinet with RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. So it's definitely a clear signal. Another interesting fashion choice was Senator John Fetterman, who showed up to the Capitol wearing shorts and a hoodie in 20-degree weather with very, very chilly wind. So this is sort of his style, signature style on Capitol Hill, which is very different from most senators. But it also shows a little bit of a sign of disrespect to show up in shorts and a hoodie during the presidential swearing. And I think that he should have cleaned up a little bit more, especially because he is seeking to have Trump on his side.
To me, it was like as simple as how was he allowed in? Many restaurants won't allow you to walk in if you're dressing like that. They're gym shorts.
Yes, it is shocking. Another interesting fashion choice that's really got social media buzz is Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' fiance's very risque outfit choice. And there was a couple of moments there where we saw even Mark Zuckerberg sneaking a peek at her in what people might consider an inappropriate manner.
I was shocked first when I saw her walking in. I said, wow, for once she looks very demure because she was all covered up because it's so cold. But then, of course, as soon as she went in there, she opened up the blazer and there was her signature bra and cleavage. What a character. Let's move into our Melania Decoded segment. Kelly, of course, we were right. She wore American designers too, actually. Her coat was by Adam Lips and a hat, a very statement hat by Eric Javids. The hat wow, has sparked 1,000 theories. The moment after Trump was sworn in and he wanted to try to give her a kiss, and the hat just did not allow him to get too close. Of course, that has already sent the internet into conspiracies that Melania wore the hat to keep him away.
It was a very strong fashion choice. I thought she looked overall very refined, very chic. She looked somewhat regal or untouchable, especially with the hat creating sort of a barrier around her. You couldn't really see her eyes because of the shadow of the hat, which I thought was very strategic.
It's worth mentioning Oscar de la Renta also did a custom gown for Asha Vance, who looked beautiful. And again, 8 years ago, during the first Trump inauguration, designers would not work with them for fear of getting canceled. We also saw at the inauguration today the owners of the Louis Vuitton house. That's a huge sign of support. Back in the first term, this is not something that we would see. They are not showing that level of support for Trump.
Let's take a quick break and talk about what all of this means when we come back.
Now that we're back, let's get to Trump's second speech. I thought it was interesting, Kelly, because he often uses buzzwords to get his point across, but there were a lot of strong sayings used to describe the America he's promising. He said he wants an America that is colorblind. We already discussed he wants to be a peacemaker, a unifier, but he did give a second speech outside the rotunda to the spouses of Congress members that I thought was a little bit more MAGA style. At the second speech, he did mention the January 6 rioters who he called hostages. He also went on in his usual style about the 2016 election and Hillary Clinton, just his greatest hits. Of course, he talked about the Gulf of America, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, and also Mount Denali, which he wants to rename back to Mount McKinley to honor the former president.
I think he was taking us a little bit further inside the inner workings of his mind as he puts in place his first policies. His speech before Congress and the nation just minutes before was very polished, very put together, strategic, very positive overall. When he went behind the scenes to the spouses, he sort of unleashed more of the Trump that we know from his rallies. So that was kind of fun to see. And we should expect more of that as he heads to Capital One Arena for his inaugural parade later this afternoon.
Now, let's get to some predictions for the first week after the inauguration. I think we have seen that Trump means business. He's getting in there, ready to sign all executive orders. I think he's going to continue checking the promises that he made during the campaign.
He's definitely hitting the ground running over the next week. We'll see that. We'll see more of his cabinet confirmed. And I also think we'll see him do his first official trip as president. It's been teased that he will be heading to California to survey the horrible devastation by the LA wildfires. We'll expect that by the end of this week. And also, he said today, actually, that he was going to be going to North Carolina, some of the Asheville area, to survey some of the damage that they're still reeling from the devastating hurricanes earlier this year. So we're already going to see more of a humanized side of Trump as he goes to look at this damage. It's a strong way to start off his presidency by reaching out to the middle class Americans who may have been really negatively impacted by these horrible natural events. He'll be on the ground talking to first responders, talking to his law enforcement. It'll be interesting to watch him interact now as president of the United States, getting back into his groove with the American people, reaching out to little guy as he promised in his speech today.
Well, that's all for today's episode of MAGAland, the first 100 days of Trump's second term. Thank you so much for joining us.
Tune in on Wednesday for more in-depth coverage as we have fully entered MAGAland.
Let us know your thoughts by emailing us at welcometomagaland@dailymail.com and follow us on Instagram at welcometomagaland.